if you own a pet, a dog, a cat, maybe something else, you probably feel this, right?
Yeah.
They are just companions. They feel like family.
Absolutely.
We talk to them. We think we know what they're feeling. But, beyond the warm fuzzies, can that connection, that companionship actually keep our brains sharper as we get older, slow down decline?
Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. We've looked at some really large, long-term studies, the kind that follow people for, decades.
Right.
And our mission here is to unpack the science. Is there a real link between having a pet and how our thinking skills hold up over time? What's the evidence say?
And these aren't small studies we're talking about. Give us a sense of the scale, the sources for this deep dive.
Yeah, we're drawing on some heavy hitters. There's the Survey of Health, Aging, and Retirement in Europe that's SHARE.
Okay.
Then the English Longitudinal Studies Aging, ELSA from the UK, and also data from U.S. Medicare beneficiaries.
Yeah.
So taken together, these studies followed thousands and thousands of adults aged 50 plus for, in some cases, up to 18 years. It's not just a quick look. It's like watching the aging process unfold.
A whole aging movie, as you said. Okay, so with all that data, what's the headline? What did they find?
The main finding is pretty consistent and honestly quite compelling. Long-term pet ownership is linked with slower rates of cognitive decline over time.
Slower decline. In what specific areas?
Specifically, the benefits seem to cluster around verbal memory, remembering words and lists, and verbal fluency, which is about how easily you can find words and speak smoothly.
Okay, verbal memory and fluency. Now let's unpack that because this is where it gets really fascinating, right? It wasn't just any pet that seemed to help. The studies found differences between species.
Exactly. This is crucial. The protective effect really seems to be driven by dogs and cats, primarily.
Okay, so what did they find for dog owners?
For dog owners, the association was specifically with retaining sharper, immediate, and delayed verbal memory recall. So remembering things right away and also remembering them later.
Holding on to those memories. And cat owners, was it the same or different?
It was a bit different for cat owners. Their ownership was linked more strongly to a slower decline in verbal fluency. That ability to access words quickly, speak easily, communicate without, tripping over words as much over time.
Interesting. So dogs for memory recall, cats for fluency. It suggests the type of interaction matters.
It really does seem to.
And what about other common pets, like birds or fish? Did they show similar benefits?
Well, that's the other really telling part. For owners of birds and fish, the studies found no significant association with slower cognitive decline.
Not at all.
No. Which immediately makes you ask why. Why dogs and cats but not others?
Right. What are the theories?
Researchers floated a few ideas. For fish, maybe the shorter lifespan means you don't form quite the same deep emotional bond that might trigger neurochemical benefits.
Okay, that's plausible.
And for birds, there was some speculation, and I stress speculation, that maybe the noise levels from some species could interfere with the owner's sleep. And we definitely know poor sleep is bad news for cognitive function.
Yeah, sleep is huge, but those sound like hypotheses, right? Educated guesses. Is there any hard data, like sleep studies linked to bird ownership, backing that noise idea up? Or is it still just a potential explanation?
Oh, absolutely still speculation at this point.
Yeah.
It's a logical hypothesis to explain why birds didn't show a benefit. But no, the direct causal proof isn't there yet.
Got it.
What is clear, though, is that the kind of interaction you have with dogs and cats, the back and forth, the training, the structured care, it's just fundamentally different, more complex.
That makes a lot of sense. The complexity matters, and that complexity, that interaction, seems to lead us to another really critical finding, especially from the ELSA data in the UK. The benefits weren't the same for everyone, were they?
No, definitely not. And this is maybe the most important nuance. It depends heavily on your social circumstances, specifically whether you live alone.
Ah, okay. Tell us about that.
So we already know from lots of research that folks living alone generally face a higher risk of faster cognitive decline and even dementia. It's a known risk factor.
Right. Social isolation isn't good for the brain.
Exactly. And the ELSA data confirmed this people living alone tended to show faster declines in verbal memory and verbal fluency compared to those living with other people.
Okay, so living alone equals higher risk. What happens when you add a pet, like a dog or cat, to that situation?
This is the really striking part. For those individuals living alone, owning a pet was associated with a slower rate of decline in those exact same areas, verbal memory and fluency.
So it helps buffer the risk?
It did more than buffer it. The data suggested that pet ownership appeared to completely offset the increased rate of decline linked to living alone.
Wow, completely offset it. That's a huge claim. So the pet essentially cancels out the cognitive disadvantage of living alone.
That's what the association suggests, yes. It essentially leveled the playing field for those living alone compared to those living with others, at least in terms of the rate of decline in these specific verbal skills.
That is genuinely powerful. Is it just about feeling less lonely, the psychological side? Or is there something more going on, maybe physiologically, that lets a pet stand in for human company?
It seems to be both, which is why it's so compelling. Yes, pets provide companionship, unconditional love that definitely tackles the psychological stress of loneliness,
Sure.
but it's also physiological. The pet doesn't just sit there, it makes demands. It kind of forces you into healthier patterns. And this brings us to what researchers think are the sort of four pillars explaining why pets have this effect.
Okay, the mechanisms. Let's dig into those.
Yeah.
Why are dogs and cats apparently so good for our aging brains? What's pillar number one?
Pillar one is regular activity and exercise. This is obviously most pronounced with dogs. You have to walk them.
Right. Rain or shine.
Exactly. And because of that, dog owners are just much more likely to meet those recommended weekly exercise targets, the 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous activity.
And exercise is king for brain health. Better blood flow, oxygen, neuroplasticity.
Precisely. But the key difference here, compared to, say, deciding to go to the gym, is the dog mandates it. It's not really optional if you're a responsible owner.
That makes sense. It builds consistency.
Right. That consistency over years and decades is likely a huge factor for long-term brain health. It's built-in adherence.
Okay, that's a strong one. What's pillar number two?
Number two is social connection. Again, especially with dogs, they're like little social catalysts.
How so?
Well, when you're out walking a dog, you just naturally interact more with people. Neighbors, other dog walkers, people stopping to pet the dog.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Those little frequent social interactions, they actually help keep your language skills sharp and combat the cognitive effects of isolation. Plus, the simple act of bonding with the animal itself can lower stress markers like blood pressure.
Okay, so exercise and social connection. What's the third pillar?
The third is more internal, reduced stress and emotional support. Just the act of petting an animal, having that steady companionship,
Yeah.
it's been shown to lower cortisol levels. Cortisol is our main stress hormone, and we know chronic high stress is bad for memory and focus.
So the pet acts like a furry stress ball, basically.
In a way, yes. They offer a calming presence, a distraction from worries that can free up cognitive resources, helping with memory and attention.
Makes sense. And the fourth pillar, you said this one was tied more to responsibility.
That's right. Pillar 4 is structured routine. Some researchers call it behavioral scaffolding.
Behavioral scaffolding, explain that.
Think about the daily tasks involved in pet care. Feeding times, maybe giving medication, grooming, the walk schedule, cleaning the litter box.
Right. It's a routine.
It's a necessary routine that requires you to use your memory, your planning skills, your time management. You have to remember things, organize the day around the pet's needs.
Ah, I see. So the tasks themselves keep you mentally engaged.
Exactly. Those repetitive but necessary actions help maintain and reinforce executive functions. They give structure to the day, a sense of purpose, which is really vital, especially for older adults.
It really highlights that it's a two-way street, doesn't it? Caring for them helps us stay sharp. Okay, let's flip the coin now. We've talked a lot about human brain aging. What about our pets? Do they face similar cognitive challenges as they get older?
Oh, absolutely. And this is where it becomes a really interesting parallel story. We need to talk about canine and feline cognitive dysfunction syndrome, or CDS.
CDS, okay.
It's remarkably similar to Alzheimer's disease in humans. When researchers look at the brains of pets with CDS, they find some of the same key features. Things like beta amyloid plaques building up, brain atrophy or shrinkage, and loss of neurons.
Wow. So our dogs and cats can get a form of dementia too. That means we should be thinking about their brain health as they age, right? Are there ways to help them, similar to how we approach human cognitive health?
Yes, exactly. And there's growing research into this, particularly around nutrition. Systematic reviews have looked at diets and specific nutrients to combat CDS.
What's showing the most promise?
One of the biggest standouts is omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA and EPA, the kinds you find in fish oil.
Ah, omega-3s. We hear about those for human brain health too.
We do. They're crucial for nerve cell membranes, reducing inflammation, basically neuroprotection. And the study shows significant cognitive benefits in older pets taking omega-3s.
What kind of benefits?
In dogs, it was particularly helpful for improving learning functions. In cats, Often when combined with other nutrients, it seemed to help across basically all cognitive functions measured.
So, should we all be giving our senior pets fish oil supplements, or is this more about specialized senior pet foods?
It's definitely being incorporated into specialized diets, but it's worth noting that many of the trials showing the strongest results used quite high levels, often through supplementation on top of the diet.
Okay. What else works besides omega-3s?
Another really interesting one is medium-chain triglycerides, or MCTs. You usually get these from coconut or palm kernel oil.
MCTs. How do they help the pet brain?
Well, MCTs work in a fascinating way. As brains age, both human and animal, they can become less efficient at using glucose, their main fuel source.
Right, like an energy crisis in the brain.
Exactly. MCTs provide an alternative fuel source in the form of ketones. It's like a metabolic bypass for the aging brain.
Does it work?
The trials suggest yes. Diets containing around 5.5% to 6.5% MCTs significantly improve things like executive function, problem solving, planning, and visuospatial skills in older dogs.
That's pretty specific.
Right.
So addressing that energy gap directly. Any other supplements showing promise?
Yeah, a few others popped up in the reviews. Things like S-adenosylmethionine or SAMe and homotaurine both showed benefits for aspects of executive function and learning in some trials. There's also apoequarin, which is a protein involved in calcium regulation.
Okay. What about things like antioxidants, vitamins E and C? We hear about those a lot.
That's a key point. When those antioxidant and vitamins were used on their own, they generally failed to show significant positive effects on cognition in these reviews.
Really? Why not?
They are important. They're actually essential for keeping the omega-3s stable and preventing them from going rancid.
Mm.
But as standalone cognitive boosters, the evidence just wasn't there in these analyses. They seem to work best as part of a broader nutritional strategy, not in isolation.
So it's complex. For both us and our pets, it seems like a multifaceted approach is needed for brain health.
Absolutely. There's no single magic bullet.
So bringing this all together then, what's the big takeaway for someone listening?
I think the big picture
Yeah.
is that sharing your life with a dog or a cat, caring for them,
Yeah.
it's not just enjoyable, it seems to be a genuinely powerful way to support your own cognitive health, especially if you happen to live alone. The science is increasingly backing this up.
Right.
And at the same time, we're learning more about how to support their cognitive health through things like targeted nutrition with omega-3s and MCTs. So we can help keep our companions sharp too. It's a real win-win.
And this evidence seems strong enough now that it's starting to influence policy discussions, isn't it?
It is. Organizations like Habery IA, the Human-Animal Bond Research Institute, and researchers are actively using this kind of data to advocate for change.
What sort of changes?
Things like pushing for more animal-friendly senior housing options, allowing pets in assisted living, for instance, and also looking at ways to make veterinary care and maybe pet insurance more affordable and accessible for older adults on fixed incomes.
Because if pets are a public health benefit,
Exactly. If they demonstrably improve health outcomes and potentially reduce healthcare costs associated with cognitive decline or loneliness, then policies should support keeping people and their pets together, not create barriers. It starts to look like a public health imperative.
that makes a lot of sense. Okay, before we wrap up, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. A final provocative thought based on all this research.
Okay, here's something to chew on. Most of the studies we've discussed today focused on pretty standard cognitive tests. Verbal memory, verbal fluency, measurable stuff.
Right.
But what about other, maybe more subtle aspects of cognition? Think about things like sustained attention, or maybe emotional resilience, or even just overall subjective well-being and quality of life. Could these incredibly unique bonds we form with pets be protecting those areas too, in ways we haven't quite figured out how to measure effectively yet?
So the benefits might be even broader than what we can currently test for.
It's possible. It suggests that future research really needs to combine those objective cognitive tasks with more subjective measures, questionnaires about mood, loneliness, life satisfaction, to get the full holistic picture of just how profoundly these animals impact our aging experience.
A lot left to explore there. Really fascinating stuff. And maybe a good reminder for everyone listening to go give their dog or cat an extra pat right now.
Couldn't agree more.